Yes, good day. I'd like to welcome you guys to my presentation. I'd like to first thank Jose and Ludmila for this opportunity granted to me to be a presenter on this subject matter and for this virtual um, conversation regarding such. It is a timely subject matter, not only for St. Martin, on the wider Caribbean, Latin Latin America as well, both Central and South, but also I think the wider world is also coping with this issue of deployment of 5G services, and then soon also the 6G services. But for now, we'll take a look at St. Martin's perspective on this and what's been happening in our neck of the woods and what has been done in order to accommodate such deployment for St. Martin. My title of this presentation, as you can see, is the 5G deployment on St. Martin. What is the 5G business case for St. Martin in the short and long term? Table of contents we'll be discussing, of course, where is St. Martin for those of you that may not know where exactly we are in the Caribbean Sea. I'll touch on this a little bit. St. Martin's telecoms landscape as well. What does that look like? It has a lot of similarities to what's happening in the rest of the world and the rest of the Caribbean as well. It's a little more vibrant in the sense of the amount of operators that are on our market for such a small portion of the island, but we'll get to that. That comes around. The burning question too: what is actually 5G and what is it meant to do? We'll definitely go into that as well. And the subject matter, of course, St. Martin's 5G spectrum allocation process. How is St. Martin dealing with the allocation of spectrum to 5G services, and then leading to its deployment. And of course, the status of the 5G requests for St. Martin. Has there been any? What's the update on that? And then, of course, what is the outlook for the future 5G deployment in St. Martin? And how is that going to look like and roll out? And then some closing remarks. First of all, where is St. Martin and how's it, what does it make up? How's it put together? As you may not know, it's a two-country island state, similar to what the European Union looks like, but on a small scale. St. Martin is you will see the different spellings of St. Martin because of the southern side, which is the Dutch side. The spelling would be as follows: SINTMAARTN, which is the Dutch spelling, and then the common spelling for St. Martin would be ST or Saint Martin with one A, RTIN, which is the French as well as the English spelling thereof. The island is 37 square miles in its totality, located in northeastern portion of the Caribbean. So we are just south of the US Virgin Islands, US and British Virgin Islands. And we're just before Antigua and Barbuda. So we kind of nestle in between there. And to our north, we have our neighbor, which is Anguilla. And then to the south, we have Saba, Statia, and St. Kitts. The Dutch side makes up 16 square miles or 37 square miles, and the northern portion, of course, which is the French, is 21 square miles. There's two governments, two administrations, basically two of everything, basically, as it comes, because they're two separate countries, but meshed together on one island. There are open borders, so there's free movements of goods and people. There's no border checks, there's no border securities, and so therefore one can transfer from one side of the island without any issues. Our major economic pillar is tourism. This comes from both sides of the island. So we get on average about 2 million cruise passengers per annum. The numbers have been a little lower since COVID, but they're slowly but picking up. As it relates to stayover or tourists coming by airline and spending extra days in St. Martin, that's about 1.5 million per annum as well. And we have a lot of throughput for tourists that goes to St. Bart's and also Anguilla. So yeah, the numbers will fluctuate based on if they do stay extra day on St. Martin or whatever the case may be. And sometimes they are counted along with that overall number. St. Martin Telecom's landscape, again, the Dutch side is only 16 square miles. It comprises of the following telecom services. We have one fixed line service provider who's right now in the process of phasing out their copper line infrastructure with fiber. That's an ongoing project. It has encountered some difficulties along the way, but it is moving along, steady but slow. But so we expect within the next year, year and a half, if all goes well, that should be completely finalized. There are two international service providers. So those are service providers that provide connectivity to the outside world. And they are predominantly wholesalers, and they provide services to the mobile operators and the ISPs as well. And also the sole fixed line service provider also has connectivity with one or both of these service providers. We have 4 licensed mobile operators. Presently, there are only 2 operational. The other 2, the license has been granted, but they have not started the operations yet. This is mainly due to financing at this point. There's no clear indication when these 2 will actually become active, and this is solely based on obtaining the proper finances and strategic partner, of course, to carry out their objective. We have 4 fixed wireless internet service providers utilizing a mixture of licensed and unlicensed spectrum, so the 2.4, the 5 gigahertz, and some backhaul is also in licensed spectrum, depending on what they choose to do to use for backhaul. But predominantly, the access to the network is done via Wi-Fi, which is the most simple and basic way to do it, and it's more cost effective as well. Like I indicated, we have 2 international service providers. In order for them to get out of the country, we have submarine cables. That's the main way of getting out of the country to the wider world. At present, there are 2 submarine cable systems. At this moment in time, there's only 1 operational. One was damaged some years back due to the passing of a hurricane, and that damage occurred in Puerto Rico, just off the coast of Puerto Rico. And the restoration process thereof has been quite tedious and slow because of all the regulations and requirements that have to be met in order to repair this cable that is being imposed by the U.S. government, and as it relates to where the cable is lying at the moment. The cable at that time when it was laid partially over a reef, and in the meantime, that reef has become a nature reserve. So therefore, the requirements to repair this cable in a nature reserve is quite strenuous. So there are talks of moving the cable, which will eliminate that hurdle, and then hopefully that can be restored within a short time. But it is proving to be quite difficult to get this up and running. There's some finances also involved in this as well, where the company in question has been struggling to meet the necessary financial requirements to do such as well. What is 5G? That's a question that depends on who you ask, you get a different answer. Also depends on who you ask. They would also indicate that it not only what it is, but you will get a sort of answer in terms of its usage. Also, you will get different flavors of answers regarding that as well. But to set the record straight, let's take a quick look at it, and then from there we can definitely have the same train of thought as what it is and what it's being used for. What can it be used for? and then one can get better understanding what challenges are ahead, especially from a semantics perspective. 5G is the fifth generation of fixed wireless access technology. Again, a lot of people believe it's something else in terms of it's pegged to a faster, providing faster internet speeds and stuff like that, or faster access to data services and stuff like that, which is not quite. It's not only that, but there's more behind it. So that offers a competitive substitute to fixed line connectivity, such as fiber to the X, and X can be to the home, to the cell site, to the curb, and different flavors of that. So it's it's whatever you're connecting it to that overhauls that last mile, so to speak, to another form of data transportation. With its superior radio capabilities, and therefore offers business opportunities for mobile operators. So it is definitely something that will enhance their potential in terms of getting a broadband data more securely, and providing a much more capacity pipe to whatever they want to send us to, whether it be to the customer, which is the end customer, or to serving as a backbone to its mobile sites. For the mobile operators, the fixed wireless access technology provides cost-effective network deployment solution, as with the wireless links are cheaper to set up / deploy and operate than a fixed infrastructure. Of course, this speaks for itself as well. There's no hassle about getting permits to trench, and the amount of time it takes to do this, to trench from point A to point B, with all the requirements and limitations that may arise from it. This is literally a point-to-point connection where you have an installation on one end and you have another installation on the other end, and within a matter of sometimes a day or hours, this can be established and the network can be up and running. So the network costs in the last mile will be significantly reduced with the fixed wireless access compared to the cost of an fiber to the X solution. This means that the broadband connectivity will be economically feasible with a fixed wireless access that would be otherwise have been infeasible. Like again, the limitations in terms of trenching and at times not be able to trench at all because of whatever might be in the way of a fixed network. The terrain itself not able to do that, the distance not being cost effective, and maybe spanning over a non-inhabited portion of, in this case, an island or a non-inhabited part of a country. So you can take, for instance, a nature reserve, for instance, where there's nobody there, but you'll have to get to your customers or your cell site, which is on the other end of that nature reserve, for instance. Trenching would be not a feasible way to do it because it's a nature reserve and there will be a lot of stipulations, too costly to do that. And again, it's you have all that cost and it just maybe going to either a handful of customers or just going to service a site which is serving multiple customers. So a wireless solution is the most vibrant and easiest way to do that, where it's less impactful to the environment, so forth, and cheaper, of course, ultimately. So the benefits with the fixed wireless access solution, the mobile operators can enjoy the following business opportunities: broadband deployment to the currently underserved or unserved. That's also a case as well. Like I indicated, it can be deployed rapidly and with very little impact to the environment. And then costs in terms of getting permits and waiting for these to be approved as well for trenching. Potential upgrade from copper lines to the fixed wireless access to provide broadband service to existing fixed customers. Again, if you're in the process of phasing out your copper lines, and then you want to, the standard would be to replace them with fiber. But again, this comes with a cost for trenching, and we all know what that entails. With this solution, there's no trenching involved, and this can be done within a short time. So you can get wireless link connection between cell sites, between sites, and from there you can drop it down to back to fiber, as is in that particular community, or building resorts, or from there it goes from a point to point, goes to a point to multi-point with a broadband backhaul. So again, you will be achieving your objectives either which way with a 5G wireless fixed wireless solution. The ability to deploy temporary broadband connectivity in the event of seasonal congestion and demand and or for emergency communications in the event of a disaster. And this will touch on later in my presentation as well, the latter part of concerns to disasters. This, again, for temporary purposes, again, trenching, no need for that. Just set up a remote, whether it be a cow, or provide extra bandwidth to an existing site that is already being served with a fixed line solution, whether it be copper or fiber. Because of congestion, you need more bandwidth. 5G would be the option to do that, to increase it in a very short, again, matter of hours, to increase the bandwidth to that particular site so it can handle the congestion. Internet of Things, of course, to provide cheaper connectivity to solutions for the IoT applications, which tend to require less stringent requirements than that of the mobile broadband. And again, these solutions can be done very easily and very non-invasive in terms of the installation, and providing the same broadband or even more in order for these IoT solutions and applications to run over, and again, serving the general public in a very efficient and cheap manner. So that's basically what the 5G is all about, and it's very clear and concise on what it is. And this definitely sort of dispels all the myths and misnomers of what we have heard over the last few years in terms of the myths of 5G and what it's doing and the cause and effect and et cetera, which I won't touch on at all in this presentation, because we all know that's just a bunch of rhetoric and it's just hearsay. So Marteen's spectrum allocation process, and of course, for any operator wishing to do business and apply for spectrum to for its services, to deploy its services, there is a process. So Marteen is nothing different than any other country that is concerned. However, because of our geographical location and size, and the geographic location of our neighbors, and particularly the French side, which is pegged to the island. But also you have, like I indicated before, you have Anguilla to the north, you have Sabre and Statia to the south, you have also St. Bart's, also to the southeast. You have St. Kitts also somewhat southeast as well to the islands, and everything is within relatively short distances from each other. So certain services, wireless services, do have impact on those territories from St. Marteen, or vice versa, from them on to St. Marteen as well. So therefore, these islands came together in 2006 memory serves correctly, and they came together and then to solve these problems in terms of cross-border interference and the like. And out of this became the frequency coordination agreement between us. And this agreement is between administrations of Anguilla, France, which is the French side, and French side of Saint Martin, and also Saint Bart's, Saint Martin, and of course also the state of the Netherlands on behalf of Sint Eustatius and Sable. So these entities have come together, and we have hammered out all the technical requirements for a harmonious division of all spectrum involved, from broadcast to mobile, and everything else in between, such. And that relationship has fostered an environment where operators can execute their core tasks without any issues of interference, whether it be internally or external interference from the neighboring islands. And the latest amendment to this agreement was done in February 2023 with all parties involved. This latest amendment dealt with the allocation of 5G spectrum and the rules of engagement for deployment by the operators. This agreement took about a year and change to develop, and therefore technically St. Martin and by extension the rest of the signatories to this agreement were ahead of the game as it relates to WRC 23. We had an agreement already. We had understanding of how this is what the rules of engagement were and how it's going to be deployed before WRC actually took place. The WRC, the ratification of the 3.4 to the 3.8 gigahertz spectrum was then ratified in November at WRC 23, and also the usage therefore also was ratified as well. We were ahead of the game. St. Martin was also present in WRC this year to ensure that its interest as it relates to this ban was also secured in the international agreements as well. And we were successful in doing this along with our sister island, Curacao, and the other islands in the Caribbean that were present as well, also supported this effort as well to making sure that this ban was secured or such. The allocation process of issuance of the spectrum provides like I said before, provides a fair and equitable assignment that allows for growth as the demand for services increases across all jurisdictions who form part of the agreement. So again, making sure that everything is divided equally and that all can participate without limitations to a certain extent. The status of the 5G request for St. Martin. As present, St. Martin, the Dutch side, there's no deployment for 5G services, and there are no official requests for such as yet. At this point, the operators have only shown interest in asking about availability and definitely what the cost of spectrum would be like. So they are preparing in some form or fashion, or at least trying to see what would fit them best as it relates to the 5G technology and if they're going to deploy it, yes or no. On the French side of the island, there is one operator that has deployed 5G. This came about as an emergency measure after Hurricane Irma, which was in 2017, that struck the island, whereby most of the telecom services on both sides of the island were heavily damaged. The French authorities granted an extraordinary permission for the deployment of, to reestablish deployment of 5G, to reestablish communications in the heavily affected areas on the French side. Again, this was done in conjunction with the Dutch side as well, and letting the French side do this because we saw the need of of them trying to restore communications and some data services to the affected areas. This was before, of course, this is way before the agreement was put together for the 5G services. But and in this case, this was also used as a test case for Marteen as well to see what would how would it actually be deployed, and if there's a use case for it as well, and it relates to its coexistence with other technologies on the ground as well in terms of interference and the like. The French operator that deployed the 5G technology to aid the restoration process after the hurricane was met with quite a bit of criticism by the population as misinformation concerning the 5G technology spread like wildfire. And then one of the sites was vandalized because of this, and this became a problem. People literally protested against, although they had no connectivity, but they protested heavily in some of the neighborhoods for the deployment of 5G. The operator in question scaled down its deployment, had no other choice to do such, and with in turn caused a total delay in restoration of telecom services on the French side. And the French side is also now, since after the hurricane, has picking up the mantle again to its continuation of the deployment of fiber networks throughout the French side. It's a long-going process. I don't know exactly how far they are with it, but they are quite a bit of ways off it. And so the 5G is still deployed. It's still in service until fiber has reached to those neighborhoods where they can potentially shut it down, or at least have a fixed connection there, which that will supplement or at least provide that particular area neighborhood with its needs for capacity. What's going to happen afterwards, I do not know, but that is concerned. So that's still in the making, and see what the French is going to do with that, or at least the operator, how the operator is going to proceed forward. And again, because of this incident, the Dutch side operators also decided to adopt a wait and see approach as relates to the 5G deployment on the Dutch side, because of what happened on the French side. And to this day too, again, they're quite hesitant to actually make a move. They are showing interest as time go by, but it's very cautiously done as it relates to that. There are actually no real clear indications of what is going to be their plan actually in terms of deployment and how this is going to be done in conjunction with existing networks that they have already with that side. Outlook for the future of Marteen in terms of the 5G deployment. As was already indicated, the operators have to date only made inquiries concerning the spectrum as it relates to the availability and its costs, nothing else. They have been, we have been aware that, they have been made aware of the rules of engagement as it pertains to the recently signed frequency agreement, as it pertains to the network infrastructure deployment via frequency coordination agreement. So in order for all the entities to be harmonious, there's standards and regulations that they have to apply by, and in order for them to deploy a seamless network that will not interfere with each other and or cause cross-border interference, and assuring equitable frequency assignment as well across the board. So the operators know of this. They have agreed to terms of this already because they saw the agreement. So everything is laid out. It's just a matter of them pulling the trigger, as it were. The regulatory framework surrounding the 5G deployment also needs to be addressed, and that's working on our side as a regulator. We're busy with that as we speak. As related to spectrum pricing, which is a very important concept, because the demand for capacity definitely will increase. The channel sizes are bigger. If we apply that to what is existent now as it relates to um, um, to what is the standard for procurement, right? It will become superly expensive, and yeah, nobody would dare go down that road. So it defeats the purpose to have a technology that can do a lot, but it costs the spectrum that it needs to use to do that costs extremely a lot. So that pricing and calculation schemes, we are busy now trying to find a middle ground where that is concerned, and to make it more accessible for the operators to use that spectrum, and by extension that technology, to provide better and enhanced services. So that's a process ongoing on our side. This debate too, in terms of the price of the spectrum and the overall cost of the adaptation and implementation of 5G has sparked definitely a lively debate amongst the operators in the Caribbean as to who should contribute to the funding of this upgrade, right? And this is something that the operators have been going about for quite some time, with slogans like "Big Tech must pay" and the like. And it has some merit, but it's a catch-22 type of thing, because the demand from the customers for better services, and the demand that the applications require for them to run on to get these services to the customers, right? It's an ecosystem, and at the end of the day, the customer always pays, because in order to receive service, you have to pay for service. So at the end of the day, it is a customer who's going to pay at the end of the day, but the customer cannot be asked to pay for everything. Cannot the operator will not raise their prices from one day to the next to the customer, because then the customer would leave them and seek services other way somewhere else. So it is a catch-22 type of scenario, but it has some merit to it, and that is a discussion that is ongoing, and it needs quite some attention to it, and I would, my dear CSO, a magnifying glass put over that as well, to find a solution, or at least a way out of that quagmire, if you want to call it that. For the short and long term, the outlook for Marteen as it relates to the 5G and eventually the 6G uptake and deployment is somewhat uncertain at this point in time, like I indicated before, because of the pricing and stuff like that. But there is hope that at some point in time, that the companies, by them asking these questions and sort of preparing themselves, we suspect that maybe by the end of this year, 2024 or early 2025, that the first deployments on the DOT side, may come forth. Again, it's just a prediction, but we are hoping that would be it. That would be the case, and then we would see our services on Marteen crank up a little bit more in terms of what the operators can provide for their customers, right? This will hinge on, again, this would also come back to us as regulators as well, in terms of restructuring as it relates to the spectrum pricing, and update to the regulatory framework supporting traditional and non-traditional telecom services, service providers. This is a very important thing, because as the rules are already laid down for some time already, the service providers, the newer service providers, they don't fit in the box as a traditional service provider, right? And then using this technology to provide services, by rights, they don't fit the mold to be awarded the spectrum or even be classified as a service provider, because they're not fulfilling the entire scope of what the law says. And that's something that we also would need to adjust as regulators as well, that the regulation has to come up with the times where traditional, quote unquote, operators, and what is seen as a traditional operator doesn't necessarily fit the mold of today's operators, because today's operators and the technology itself have sort of combined a lot of these services under one umbrella, and these services are not necessarily brought forth by the service provider. The service provider provides a platform for the end user to establish that service themselves. I'm talking, like, say, for instance, voice services as well. So we look at something like a WhatsApp, for instance. WhatsApp doesn't require switching, anything like that. It's just it's end-to-end connection, and there's a platform that runs the system, and there's no billing, there's no there's no interconnection, anything like that. It's just a platform that runs itself, and one can do voice once there is end-to-end pairing, and the rest, quote unquote, magically happens, as somebody once quoted. So again, that falls in the realm of a non-traditional service provider, but they're providing services. And then based on that, now we as regulators now will have to dive a little deeper into this, and making sure, like, for instance, that somebody using WhatsApp, they can make an emergency phone call, 911, wherever they are in the world, using that, look 911 for that local, wherever they are at that point in time. So if they're on vacation in Marteen, and God forbid they will get some kind of issue, and they are roaming, and they use the data or on Wi-Fi, and they have connectivity, and they decide to call 911 via their WhatsApp, because they're connected to a data network, either by Wi-Fi or by roaming, doesn't really matter, that they can get the local authorities here to come and assist them with the issue at hand. So those increases, those small things, as a regulator, we need to put in place to accommodate such, in order for this to be a viable option going forward, and to recognize the quote unquote non-traditional operators, as it were. And again, these new ventures will definitely serve the community in supporting as it relates to the efforts to connect the unconnected, and to increase connectivity, to aid economical growth, better healthcare services, to make educational experience inclusive as well as immersive, and the list of potential benefits are boundless. And again, as a regulator, we have to tread all these avenues now. Unlike before, that you will have a operator providing a set service. Now you have a operator providing multiple services that don't fit in a box, but they are important to our society today, and especially with IoT services as well. These things, again, do not fit in a traditional box. So our regulations now need to come up in time with the technology, and also with the service providers, and determine what is a service provider, and what a service provider should look like, and what are the rules of engagement of said non-traditional service providers. Sorry. In closing, yeah, the conversation regarding the uptake of 5G and eventually the 6G technology within the Caribbean, South and Central America, is a lively one. Hence this virtual gathering that we are a part of today. Brought to us by, of course, 5G Americas, is a testament to that fact. But some of the other realities must be considered as relates to the low uptake as relates to the 5G deployment. One of those realities, in my humble opinion, is the question of necessity. Island states such as Marteen and others in the Caribbean, not forgetting some of the countries in South and Central America, are asking themselves if this is a genuine need for such a deployment. And I'm talking about in the conversation again with the operators, that they're saying, okay, but what we have works just fine, and we can do most, if not all, of these features we can add to our existing network. So deployment of it is not needed. And again, the cost, and they're basing this on the cost to do it, and who's going to pay for it, and then what the end cost would look like for their customers, and then making sure that their price range is kept in such a way so that the customer retention will be there. So there is a lot of questions surrounding the deployment and if it's actually needed at this point in time, and quote unquote, what is the rush? Especially, like I said, especially if it's already their infrastructure is already adequate, and they're doing some traditional upgrades, again, from going from copper to fiber. And again, there may be instances where, yes, they will have to adopt a mixed model of fixed and fixed line versus fixed line and fixed wireless solutions to meet the goals at some point in time. And again, they will they're maneuvering those waters as they go, and the biggest factor for them is the cost. So spectrum cost, right? The world, and again, going back to the financial part of it, the world's financial outlook has changed post-pandemic, and that's a great thing too. That's what's happening now, that the financial standing of a lot of citizens of this world is not the same prior to the pandemic. And this is a factor that trickles down to the operators as well, of course, and other sources, food and utilities and the like. And this cannot be overlooked. Pertinent question should be, do we as regulators / providers push a technology where, with all its benefits, whereby only a few may be able to afford in the future, and thus moving from a situation of unconnected to one of unaffordability, and then that's another question again that is looming out there as well. Be very careful with pushing a particular standard, and then we achieve one goal, so we sort of eliminate or minimize the unconnected, but at the same time we create another problem where that same unconnected may not be able to acquire services because it's not affordable. So we have to be careful with solving one problem and creating two. Firms such as this is needed to be able to tackle these complex issues in a structural and solution-oriented manner, because at the end of the day, we are all agreeing that the world of the future is going to be a digitalized one, and then have portions of our population excluded from such, we only create havoc and so many disciplines. We're already seeing this scenario being played out in the banking and financial world, and there are institutions where the banks are now requiring to do a lot of stuff online. If you're not connected, you cannot do that. Banks are charging now when you come in to make wire transfers, even to put cash on your account. They are charging you extra for that now too, because it's a burden on them, quote unquote. So it is becoming more difficult if you're not connected to actually do business and survive in this world as is now, much less in the future. So these are the things that we as regulators must be very consequential about in terms of how we push a particular narrative as it relates to digitalization and the technologies that support such as well. Other disciplines will have to come into this conversation as well. The banking world, the financial world as well, and letting them understand that it might take some time to get there, and then understanding the thresholds for people to get into that system at a mid-level or a low-level entry, in terms of somebody not having internet, or at least the requirements for certain services, and the reliance on broadband, or high-speed broadband, I should say, that maybe can be factored down a little bit, where some things can be done, and this is proven already. Some things can be done maybe with a basic, from a basic concept of SMSs, for instance, and the like, which, broadband is not necessarily needed, but the person still achieves the objectives in terms of banking or financial payments, et cetera, et cetera. So again, these conversations, again, fintech and the like, is an ongoing one, and definitely we need to keep eye on the prize, and make sure that we create something that works, and works for everybody, not for a select few. And then definitely in closing now, my last words. So let us all proceed with caution, but with an open mind and a foresight, so that the future generations can proudly look back and say that the gatekeepers in the past left no stone unturned in providing a good foundation for the building blocks of the digital world of the future. And therefore, that is my presentation for today. And again, I would like to thank Jose and Ludmila for affording me this opportunity, and definitely would love to continue this conversation in the future amongst fellow colleagues and scholars alike. I thank you.